Hello everyone, thank you for being here. I'm feeling a bit vintage today and creating with pattern paper layers, hot foiling, and a fun technique to try with your sentiment. Mother's Day is coming up soon and I'm hoping this card will inspire you to celebrate the mom in your life. Unity Stamp Company just released a new paper pack called Vintage Whispers, and it really inspired me to go into a vintage direction. And then to pair that with the Very Best Gal Sentiment Kit, that is great to personalize any card for the women in your life. I was really inspired to add just a little bit of sparkle to these pattern papers. They're really beautiful basic designs, but I thought adding a bit of hot foiling over top would just kind of take them to the next level. So I pulled out my Spellbinders Glimmer Machine. I'm using the Dazzling Diamonds plate with some pewter foil, and I'm just going to run that through my glimmer machine using the standard directions that come with the machine. And then I'm also foiling some really pretty glimmering butterflies, and I'm using some rose gold foil for those. And this is the reveal. It just really adds a lot of dimension and shine to that beautiful pattern paper. I had a little bit of overfoiling, so I'm just using a sanding eraser to kind of clean that up a little bit. This is my card base, so it will be covered up with my layers, but I did want to clean it up just a smidge. And then here's that beautiful butterfly on the pattern paper. It's just really neat how the pattern paper kind of peeks through the foiled image. Now I'm going to use the leftover as well. I have a solid plate from Waffle Flour, and I'm just going to run that through my die cut machine. There is a carrier sheet over the top of that foil, so you want to make sure that you remove that. And then I'm using the matching die cut that comes with the set to die cut out these butterflies. I just like how easily this makes creating little embellishments and accents for my card. I wasn't really sure what I was going to do with these yet, but I had both versions, so I wanted to make sure I die cut them out so I could use them either on this card or for a future card. There's also some really cute flowers in this die set, so I die cut those out of the leftover foil as well. So let's start building up our card. I used my Dazzling Diamond background and covered my card front with that. And then I'm just going to do some torn layers. I like to tear the paper towards me so I get that nice crisp white edge. And then I'm using my sentiment as a guide to see how big my panel needs to be of the pretty flower pattern paper. Just going to place that down. I'm going to mat that with some more pattern paper. I really like the idea of having the script kind of border either side of that panel. So I'm lining that up and then again just tearing towards me so I get a nice torn edge. Now comes the fun part of this sentiment treatment. I saw this on Facebook, I don't know, in a bunch of different areas, and I thought I had to give this a go. It was so unique and I thought it was really pretty, and it really went with this vintage look, like really shabby chic and kind of torn. So I'm really playing up all the torn layers and tearing down the sentiment as well. I'm using that as a guide. You saw me pull my pencil out and do a couple lines to give me an idea of where that sentiment will be behind this panel, and then I'm tearing towards the one side, tearing off a bit of the excess, and then I'll roll this up using some sort of a pen. This happens to be my jewel picker upper tool, and it was just a good size to start that roll. And then you'll roll this by hand as well. And again, I'm double checking my sentiment. I want to make sure that it's torn away enough that you can read it. And once I was happy with the distance that I created, the white background I realized was really stark against all my vintage layers, so I'm going to grunge that up a little bit. I pulled out the tattered grid background with some distressed ink, and I'm just going to quickly stamp that on. It doesn't have to be perfect. and then I'll add a little bit of ink blending in the same color, just kind of grunge that up a bit so it's not so stark against the other pattern papers. I'm starting to build up my card by gluing down all my layers. I started with that text background pattern paper, and then I'm figuring out my placement of that sentiment. I want to make sure that it's easily visible in my torn layer. I'm going to pop that up on my card with some foam adhesive so I have a bit of dimension, and then just place that right over my sentiment so it's perfectly lined up. And I'm happy with that. Now comes all the fun little embellishments that kind of make this vintage and charming. This is not a normal style for me, so it was kind of fun to kind of go out of my element and to play with all the things. I knew I wanted a bunch of elements over that rolled area of the sentiment, so I started with layering a bow with some string, and I know that butterfly is going to go near the bow, so I'm just layering up 2 layers of foam adhesive so it pops up similar to the size of that rolled paper. And I'm just going to place it there for now. I end up adding some more things, so I'm not so worried about the placement at this point. And then I had all these cute little foiled leftover flowers die cut, so I started layering them up with both the little leaves and the pretty rose gold flowers. And I did a trio of those, and I'm just using some liquid adhesive and then adding a few enamel dots right in the center. Just thought that was really sweet and charming. And then to add one little extra element that was more texture and to kind of fill in this area behind the rolled up portion of the sentiment tear, I had some doily ribbon in my stash, and I just cut a strip, and then I am folding the top down so it creates a little bit of a tab. That way the top of the rough edge isn't so stark. So the little tab is just kind of to soften it. And then I'm going to re-glue that butterfly back down now that I have my whole corner all figured out. I had all these leftover pieces, so I thought, why don't we bring the design to the inside of the card? So I'm just layering up just a bunch of different shapes with my scraps. I die cut down the top of a tag for this one, and then layered up the torn layers that were left over from the front of my card. I'm just using the leftover pieces in a bunch of different sizes, so it's just a great way to use up those scraps that are kind of oddly shaped and kind of coordinate the inside of the card with the front. Took another piece of that doily ribbon and just stapled it back to the second butterfly that I foiled and die cut. And then I grabbed a sentiment from In My Thoughts Girl that just says, love you, because, you know, I love my mom. So I created a strip with that, just kind of trimmed that down, and then to mimic all the torn layers, I'm just going to tear off the end there at an angle and then glue that straight down onto the inside of my card. I added a bunch of liquid adhesive to really hold that ribbon and butterfly in place, and then put a block on top just to make sure it had plenty of time to dry and adhere. And then I'll just trim everything off with my scissors so it matches up to the edges of the card. And here is a look at the finished card and all its vintage charm and torn up layers. I hope you'll try out the fun sentiment treatment and are inspired to try something new like I was. I was really enjoying playing with all the layers and adding all the embellishments to create a card that's not usually my style. I'll have all the supplies linked in the description of this video on my Dahlhouse Designs YouTube channel and blog. Please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you enjoyed it. Plus, if you have any questions or sweet comment, post below. Thanks again for creating with me. I hope you were inspired, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.